All right. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai. I want to give double honors to the apostles of GMS. And I also want to say salutations, shalom, to all you brothers that's in GMS that's sincerely pushing the works. All right. And I'm Zahab GMS Mississippi Camp. And today I want to go into a lesson entitled Hostages. All right, because today the 12 tribes in America are under the impression that they are not held captive in America, and they are not the hostages they are not the descendants of the hostages that were taken here to America. They act as though that's a thing of the past, and it has nothing to do with them. So I'm going to open it up with the scripture Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 14, and it says, "Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled?" And if you look up the word spoil in the blue of the Bible, it basically goes into one that is taken away in war, such as cattle or persons. All right, and that's exactly what happened in the transatlantic slave trade. All right, now from there I'm going to get the book by Shahrazad Ali entitled "Are You Still a Slave?" You know, it has some good points that I can extract from it. So with that, I'm going to get page 147, and it's called General Slave Profile, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorders, because one of the things that she goes into is what they call post-traumatic slave disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder, which is the result of us going into slavery. All right, which I'm going to get there through the scriptures, how the mindset of the 12 tribes are basically a result of us going into slavery and losing our inheritance, losing our heritage, and what it means to lose your heritage. All right. Like I said, it says General Slave Profile, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorders, Inherited from Slavery. I'm going to skip to number 3. It says, these are the things that Jake does that stem from slavery. It says, wears the cross around the neck or lapel or hanging on a wall at home. Number 6, buys black children white dolls and books featuring white characters. That's something that the so-called black family does. They get their little girls, the little Israelite girls, but give them white Barbie dolls, which basically tells them that Broody is in the Edomite race. All right, so you got this little Barbie doll with straight leopard's hair and blue eyes, but in this little Israelite girl mind, like that's what beauty is. Then you wonder why she grows up with low self-esteem. All right, number 7, consults the Holy Bible daily or weekly and defends Christianity. And she says that from a Muslim's perspective because she's a Muslim, but the 12 tribes have been spoon-fed certain scriptures that were perverted to basically make them subservient to the so-called white man. And that's what Christianity is. All right, it's a religion that made the 12 tribes docile, where there's Christianity with the Southern Kingdom, Roman Catholicism with the Northern Kingdom. The two things that it did, it made them subservient to the same people that put them in slavery. All right. Number 8, hangs portraits of white Jesus, the Last Supper, a crucifix in the home, and that's something that you see that's prevalent in the home of all the 12 tribes. They have a picture of Cesar Borgia in their home. And you wonder why your home is cursed with roaches and everything. All right. Number 9, becomes happy and animated when talking to whites, which basically in slavery, you know, Jake had to put up that smile and tongue front in front of Esau. You still see it today. All right. Even when nothing is funny, you know, you just bust out laughing at their jokes. All right. And from that, I'm going to get another book by Shahrazad Ali. It's called The Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man. Alright, I know it's kind of dark in here, but I really wanted to get the lesson out because Satan been hindering me from pushing this lesson out for months. Alright, this is from a quote from John Brown, page 212, from, like I said, from the book The Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man. It has a lot of history on the so-called Negro, and she goes into how he became who he is as far as his mindset and his shortcomings, which a lot of it is true. All right, But like I said, in GMS we extrapolate from these articles and these books, and we just bring out bring out the truth from it. All right. Page 212, it says, this is a quote from John Brown again. Slaves had the right to gain their liberty in any way they could. He did not believe that moral suasion would ever liberate the slave, or that political action would abolish the slave system. Slavery was a state of war. Now, going back to the blue letter Bible, from the scripture, said, why is he spoiled? You look up the word spoil, it says, use of persons, cattle, carried away in war. So the transatlantic slave trade, when we were taken from Africa at that time and brought here to America, that was a state of war. That's what you call POWs, prisoners of war. All right. That's why it's no coincidence that the 12 tribes, the men of the 12 tribes, just so happen to be in penitentiaries in America. All right. Most of the Israelite men are in penitentiaries in America, and that's because we are a captive people. We are a conquered people. So what do you do when you conquer a nation? You either put them to slavery, or you put them in prison camps and call them POW, prisoners of war. And that's what the 12 tribes are. They are prisoners of war held here in America. All right. I'm going to start from the top again, page 212, second paragraph. Slaves had the right to gain their liberty in any way they could. He did not believe that moral suasion would ever liberate the slaves, or that political action would abolish the slave system. Slavery was a state of war. The slave had the right to do anything to get his freedom. Douglas was against violence, but began to consider that the only way slavery could be destroyed was by bloodshed. All right, and that's what's going on now in America. It started with the Ferguson situation. Jake is getting upset, man, because he's slowly waking up to the fact that Martin Luther King didn't set us free. Voting for Barack Obama didn't set us free, man. We're still here in the land of our captivity. As long as we are here, we gonna be oppressed, man. All right. From there, I'm going to go back to the book. Are You Still a Slave? This is page 130. This is the psychological effects of a traumatic situation, or the psychological effects of being a slave. This is page 130. It says, the effect of being taken hostage. I'm going to skip to the highlighted point. It says, in many hostage incidents, the victims initially think only of escape or survival. And that's how we were when we initially got brought here to America. We knew this wasn't our arrest, and we wanted to get out of here. A lot of slaves committed suicide on the boats, all right? A lot of slaves died because they couldn't get broken into slaves. A lot of Israelites died during the seasoning process because they couldn't get broken into being slaves, all right? It says, in many hostage incidents, the victims initially think only of escape or survival, but after days or weeks of close contact with their captors, their feelings can turn to fondness and understanding, and that's what happened to America. That's why it says in Proverbs, he that justified the wicked is basically an abomination. He's wicked himself. All right, their feelings can turn to fondness and understanding. Psychiatrists contend that this is actually a return to infancy, when a baby depends upon everything from others. All right. From that, I'm going to go back to the scriptures. I'm going to hold that and go back to the book of Deuteronomy, 28th chapter, and the 43rd verse. It says, the stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. And when it says he shall lend to you, that's where you get the word loan from. The word lend in its etymology goes back to the word loan. Alright? And that's why we have to go to Esau for everything. That's a form of slavery. Alright? That's why I said thou shalt serve thy enemies and want of hunger of all things. Alright, whether it's for a job, to get a car, you got to get a loan. To get a house, you have to have a loan. If you was in the world, you want to go to school, you have to get a loan. Alright? To drive, you have to have a license. The word license means permission. See, you're still hostages in America, man. Alright? But I'm going to go back to the highlight. It says, psychiatrists contend that this is actually a return to infancy when a baby depends upon everything from others. Alright? And the point is, Jake has been reduced to the spirit of a child. That's why you had this movie called Baby Boy with y'all know his name is Tyrese. You had this movie called Baby Boy starring Tyrese, but it really came from a theory by a certain so-called black psychologist. I believe she's a psychologist, and her whole thing was that the black man in America has been mentally reduced to basically the nature of a child. Alright, that's why you got the term baby boy. And that's all effects from that came from slavery. Because we're a nation of people, but we're basically in subject to a whole nother nation of people. Alright? You had Black Wall Street when Jake was trying to be independent, but that was the closest thing before it got destroyed. Alright? Jake doesn't know how to thrive as a nation. Alright? And that's not going to happen till Howard Shai gets here. I had to say that because I don't want to push out a vibration like we're black nationalists or nothing. Alright? No man shall buy thee. Alright? Thus, when hostages find themselves totally dependent upon other persons for survival, they revert to their rather infantile behavior. That's why Jake was always calling Esau massa, massa. You know, that like he was their father. Alright? They come to identify with their captors and often sympathize with them. You know, all white people ain't the devil. You know, black people ain't just as bad. Your own people just as bad. Conversely, they develop a certain degree of hostility towards the authorities who are trying to gain their release. Alright? But that concludes the first part of this little mini-series, man. Basically proving that we're still hostages in America. And with that, I'm going to say shalom.